So hello everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello everybody, good to see you.
Come on and join. We are going to go ahead and make sure we share this in a few groups. If you are joining us, welcome to our conversation this Tuesday. I promise that before that, every other Tuesday around 7 o'clock, I would try to have I guess we're calling this a session or a discussion. I wouldn't call it a discussion. So, as promised, it is Tuesday at 7 o'clock, maybe a couple minutes late.
We're laid back.
So we're going to make sure we share some of these in a couple groups real quick as people are joining. Welcome, Ashley. Thanks for joining. Hey, Marcus. You know some of these people?
Can't see that far. Yeah. Some good folks. Okay, good. Welcome, everybody.
I'm going to share a couple more times. Let me get into some of these groups to make sure we can promote this so everyone can join in our conversation. We have I think, a pretty amazing discussion topic today. And all right, so I think I've probably shared in enough groups right now. So again, thanks for joining. We're good?
Yep.
All right. So my name is Lamont, and I have a special guest for you today. I'm going to let him introduce himself so he can tell you all about who he is, what he does, why I harass him, all those types of things, right?
I'm Josh. I'm one of the matchmaking consultants with Better Way to Meet. I'm really excited to be here with Lamont, one of my favorite people in the world. And I'm also a psychotherapist in private practice. I do individuals, couples, relationship counseling, sex therapy as well, certified sex therapist, and just see a wide garden variety of presenting issues in my practice. And I'm happy to share some of those things with you all today, as well as in the matchmaking process.
Well, Josh, thank you for joining today. I think it's helpful for me to have someone else to talk to, because usually I'm running my mouth and I feel like I'm just talking to the screen, and I get to say hello to a few people. Hey, I see Rashawn has joined. Hello. Yep. Hey, Derek. And G, thanks for joining. Hey. So I feel like now I have someone else so I can really hear their voice back and forth and not having to read your messages. So again, we have an amazing topic today to talk about. The question is, I always have a question, right? Yep. So the question we're talking about, though, is do gay men court anymore? So Josh has a lot of things and some questions and the phases to talk about. So I'll ask him some of those questions. But you can put your comments and your input before we even get to that. But before we actually talk about our topic, of course, I have to tell you about Better Way to Meet. That's right. I have the little icon behind me. We have them on our little cards. Some of you are like, what is Better Way to Meet? If you're my Facebook friend and you don't know what Better Way to Meet is,
shame on you.
Shame on you, yes. I want you to delete me, let me block you.
Well, no. We're not going to go that far.
Okay.
Always room to learn.
Okay, so I'm going to educate you on what Better Way to Meet is. Better Way to Meet is a old-fashioned matchmaking company for gay men here in Atlanta. And Josh and I work together to meet with guys face-to-face, or we'll do a video chat to kind of get a feel for who they are, what they're looking for, and then we actually pick the guys and we send them on a date. So if you are someone who is tired of using apps and dating online or trying to send someone an inbox on Facebook and seeing if they're going to respond to you, then you should definitely try to sign up for our matchmaking service. One of our main things that we do is individual matchmaking. We listen to you, you tell us what you want, and then we pick the guy for you. I always get this one question that people ask, Josh. What do you think it is?
I don't know.
He's like, don't put me in the spot. They asked me, hey, Lamont, does it cost money?
Yes,
Yes,
it does.
yes.
Yes, it does.
It is a paid service. We charge $75. Only $75. We meet with you one-on-one. We listen to you. And then we pick the guy for you. We also arrange the date for you, right? We find the location. We do your reservation. We send you there. You meet the guy there. So all you have to do is just show up and have fun. We even follow up with you at the end of your date and say, hey, how'd it go? Give us some input. We debrief. And we do all of that for $75.
And there's some coaching involved, too. Like if there's some things that perhaps you got some feedback around, how the date went, and there's some things that you can improve upon, like making eye contact or being proactive in your, how you speak and ask questions. We want to incorporate some of that as well.
And I'm going to let you talk about our singles date night and our speed dating events. I'll give him the stage. I'll be back.
So one of the things that we were really excited to roll out is, we've been doing this for a few months now, is that every other month we do a speed dating event. And we have one coming up this coming Friday, April the 20th, at my sister's room at 8 o'clock. There's free entry. There's street parking. There's no RSVP required. And we're doing this about every other month at a different venue. And so we're really excited to roll this out this coming Friday, April the 20th at my sister's room, 8 o'clock p.m. And then every other month besides that, we have started doing a singles date night. And two of those have been, the first one we did was pottery painting. And then the second one was ice skating over at Piedmont Park. So we've had really a lot of great folks that have turned out, a lot of single guys that are looking to date, that are just really quality folks. And so we want to invite you to come and be a part of that with us. The next one is coming up in May. We haven't picked a venue yet, but one of the dates that we've been sending folks on is indoor axe throwing. It's called Bad Axe Atlanta, and people love this place. So we're trying to figure out a way to get an event scheduled there as well. So be on the lookout for that information, but that's coming up. But be sure to come out and join us this coming Friday.
Oh, yeah. Friday is my sister's room. MSR, yeah. Those are always going to be fun. So you definitely come. And I think the hashtag we use for our single date night event is #single date night. So definitely check out. You can see different people posting their pictures and having different comments. So we talked about two of our services. One is individual matchmaking service, and then the other one is speed dating. So definitely check out our website. We put it at the bottom of the screen. It's betterwaytomeet.com if you want to learn more about the matchmaking company. Okay? All right, so I think we got a lot of people joining. Hey, Courtney, how you doing? Dominique, who else do you see?
Alicia, Mark, Suzanne.
That's
Courtney.
my sister. That's my baby sister.
Your baby sister.
Thank you all so much for joining. If you are watching, we want to make sure that you like this. Please, you got to hit the like button. And then also, we're going to ask that you could share it. Please share it with your friends so that I'm sure you have a lot of single friends. All right?
Yep.
So we're talking about courtship. The question is, do gay men court anymore? In 2018, do we do that?
I think some of us do, but I think there's always room to improve. And I say this just from my own experience as a psychotherapist, working with individuals, couples, and other forms of relationship, but also working with the folks that are coming through our services, some of the questions that we get, some of the feedback around these different dates. And so I wanted to take some time to share with you all just 5 basic phases of courtship. And we're going to go through each one and just kind of spend some time talking about each one. Hopefully you all will chime in with your questions and comments as well.
So we got 5 phases.
Yep.
5 phases, okay? Hey, Blake, yes, we see you doing your song, Matchmaker, make me a match, find me a match, catch me a catch. Oh, really? Thanks for the song. So we have 5 phases of courtship. I hope that you all can stick around for all 5 phases. Some of you may need to save this video and come back and, yeah, I know some of the people who joined, you need to learn some of these 5 stages. So tell us what our first phase is, please.
So the first one has a lot to do with nonverbal communication, and it's around attracting attention. And so it really focuses on what does your posture say, what does your body language say, what are your nonverbal cues when you're around a group of people. Are you on your cell phone like this, Or are you looking up and around, smiling, showing a posture that is welcoming and inviting of conversation and interaction?
You know, I won't. I'm trying to defend anybody, but they say like people from the north. So I'm from Pittsburgh, and I went to school in Philly. But they say like people up in the north or like New Yorkers have like this face or this presence that says, "Don't talk to me." Like they put their sunglasses on, they put their baseball cap on, they're on the phone, and they're focused and they're just moving. Would you say that's like a body language that is kind of like not approachable?
I think so. I mean, because if you think about it, when there's somebody that is inviting conversation, they're not going to be on their phone, because when you're on your phone, it's like this. It signals a message of, I don't want to be bothered. I'm busy right now. I'm focusing on something else. And that's not what you want to send out to the world when you are trying to be in conversation with folks, or you are trying to invite conversation. I think a lot of folks do it. I think it is a cultural difference between North and South, perhaps. But I think a lot of folks do it when they're nervous, or when they're feeling anxious about a setting, or just sort of have space in conversation, or a pause in a conversation, a silent pause. People just get those phones out and immediately sort of bury their face in it. And we want to try to discourage that when you're looking for a date or making yourself available for courtship.
I like that, what you said about kind of making yourself available for courtship. So like if I'm at the grocery store and I want to pick up a man, how, right? You know, why not? If I want to go, I want to go get some, eggs, some milk, and a man, right? Well, what should my body language kind of be like,
So I think one of the things would be, as you're walking up and down the aisle, to kind of look around at people, make eye contact, smile, give off a signal that you are a nice person, that you are friendly, perhaps even humorous, and because it gives an impression that you are somebody that can be trusted and that is easy to be around, and that's what we want to send out to the world.
Okay, so get off my phone.
Yeah, put the phone away.
Put my phone away. Make eye contact with people, smile at somebody, maybe even say hello?
Perhaps, but that's getting on into the next phase.
Okay, tell us our next phase then.
Well, the next phase also has to do with nonverbal communication, and that is being able to read other people's body language. And so when you're sending out that kind of information, making yourself available, you want to be scanning the environment around you to see who else might be available. And so, looking for others who are in your close proximity. It's sort of like, I think of it kind of as like yelling help in a crowded room and seeing who responds or comes to your aid. I mean, it's not exactly the same thing, but you want to sort of send out a message and then see who is responding to you. And so it's paying attention to the world around you and the environment that you're in. Who else is making contact with you? Who else might be smiling at you? And do you want to try to return that same gaze or that smile or that openness to conversation back to others around you?
Yeah, I have a good girlfriend. I won't say her name. I think I talked about her before on here. But, like, she does not know when someone is trying to get her attention. Like, she doesn't know if someone's flirting with her or if someone's, like, staring or whatnot. Like, why do you think that some people are like that?
I think part of it is believing that you are worthy of being talked to. And believing that there are folks in the world that are attracted to you. If you don't believe it for yourself, then there's some internal growth that needs to happen so that you can believe that there are, in fact, people in this room or around me who would perhaps be interested in talking, and just assuming that that's the case and then believing that that's the case and then looking for that evidence to support that belief. If you believe that nobody here wants to talk to me or nobody wants to talk to you, you're going to look for evidence to support that conclusion.
So that means you have to feel like, you're hot stuff.
I mean, maybe not. I mean, but there's nothing wrong with
that. You're
attractive. Yeah, feeling like you're attractive, you're
attractive.
Worthy, you're lovable, you are a fun person to be around. Like, believing those things about yourself are really, really important, and it sends out a sexy vibe. I mean, if you see, there's some folks that you might see at the club or you might see, at a social venue who may not be the hottest person in the room, but they always are holding court with folks because they're sending out this vibe of, I'm friendly, I'm easy to talk to, I'm not going to hurt you, I'm going to figure out a way to interact with you. Like, those are the folks that really come across as attractive.
Yeah, I like how you say that, just coming across. It's kind of like having self-esteem and having self-worth and saying, hey, I'm worth being approached. And, anyone should fall over the floor trying to get to talk to you, right?
I mean, yes.
So you all who are watching, tell me how you feel like you make yourself more available. How do you let people in a crowd or at the grocery store? Yes, I'm coming back to the grocery store. Or if you're at church, how do you let people know that you are available, that it's okay to say hello to you, it's okay to approach you? Please type those in there for me. Hey, Rashad. Hey, Rhea. I see you on there. Please make sure if you're watching, like this, share it. We're talking about the 5 phases of courtship. The question is, do gay men court anymore? And I want you all to share some of your experiences, how like a guy has maybe courted you, has made you feel special, or if you have done that. Please make sure you write those comments there. So 1, we got make sure you're paying attention to what's going on, being available. 2, it's just also looking about who is going to be approaching you, making sure that you have the confidence that people should want to approach you. So those are our 2 phases.
It is, and I want to add one other thing as well that has to do with sort of reading body language. I think it, again, sort of with the power of positive intentions, is assume the best about people until perhaps proven otherwise. If you assume that folks are nice, that they are open to communication, just assume that about folks up front, I think it sets you up possibly for success to at least give it a shot. Because if you assume that the folks around me are mean, or that they're not, interested in talking to me, or that I'm not interested in talking to them, if those assumptions are made before you even walk into a room, it really starts to limit some of the options. So I think assuming the best about folks is really important.
So I'm laughing at these comments here. I don't know if you can see these. So Dante said, someone said, Dante said he's going to go into the grocery store and just yell help.
I'm telling you, Whole Foods is one of the best places to pick up men. That's all I'm saying.
Whole Foods,
right over there on Potts.
Well, I thought the Walmart on Howe Mill was the best place.
I'm more of a Whole Foods kind of guy.
Okay, I'm just telling you. That's where the trade is. Go to the Walmart.
We're not about trade, a better way to meet. We're about, wholesome relationship.
I got you crying over here. Okay. So Courtney says I usually don't engage in public, but most of the time I have only my headphones on. Well, yeah, if you have your headphones on, that might also send a signal that, what?
Well, I mean, if you have your headphones in, you have to go through all this extra stuff to take the headphones out and say, what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. And it doesn't invite conversation. Lots of people, in fact, people tell me that they will put their headphones in intentionally when they go to the gym or when they go to certain places when they don't want people to talk to them, because it can be an effective deterrent from conversation. So take those headphones out.
Yank them out, Courtney. No headphones, okay? All right. You want to give us number 3?
Yeah, verbal 3 begins to sort of dip into the verbal communication realm, and that is, being willing to say hello, being willing to ask questions, and start to just kind of engage in that verbal communication of sharing information about yourself, but also, collecting information about the other person and finding out what that common ground is. People get a little nervous when sort of initiating that conversation. But it has to be done, and I think there are some easy ways to do that. Cliche as it sounds, talking about the weather. I mean, it's a beautiful spring day today. We've had a cold past couple of nights, and everybody can kind of relate to that. It's an easy way to start off the conversation, cliche as it sounds. But there's all kinds of sort of neutral go-to places in conversation. If you're at that grocery store talking about, man, I sure am hungry. I'm looking forward to cooking such and such tonight. Looks like you're cooking some interesting things. Things like that. I don't know.
I like that. So that's what I call being nosy. You get into their basket and you go, oh, okay, I can see you're eating junk, right? Make a joke or like, hey, you're eating healthy. I think that's good because that starts conversation, and that person can give you a verbal cue. Leave me alone, right? Mind your business. Don't judge me. Or they invite you in to say, oh, yeah, I'm cooking this. And you might say, what do you like to cook? Or, it really starts a conversation.
Yeah. Humor is also crucial in these kind of moments because it really breaks the ice it is it just makes everything easier, I think. Especially at the beginning when things can be a little awkward. Injecting a little bit of humor, it conveys a sense of safety, a sense of familiarity. Yeah, I think it's really important.
I was going to ask you about that particular point or phase. What do you think about giving someone a compliment when you first meet them? Do you feel like that is too much, or is that not enough? I feel like sometimes, what has worked for me, is I'll give someone a compliment. I'll say, "Oh, I love those sneakers."
Yep.
Or, I like those jeans. Or, "Oh, your teeth are so nice." Mm-hmm. Or, "I like your haircut." Do you think that's like too much, or do you feel like that is?
I think that's good. I think that sort of, I like those jeans is good. If you say I like the jeans and I like how you're wearing them, that might be a little bit much.
There you go.
So it's important to kind of keep it clean, keep it cute. Don't go too far into sort of sexual stuff just yet. Leave that for a little bit further down the road. But yeah, I think those are some good things. Certainly, people love to be complimented on their appearance or on just their facial expression or the way they did something. I mean, I think those are all great things to start off with.
Okay, so that's a good way to kind of engage with conversation, with communication. Beverly says, this can work for women. Of course this can work for women. I think the phases of courtship are just not just for gay men. I think it works for any and everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's number 3. You want to give us number 4?
Phase 4, I think, is also important, and that's when physical touch begins. And this is non-sexual touch. This is very casual touch. And also, I think this is important to, it conveys a sense of familiarity, or at least you start to build a rapport. So, for example, if, let's say, I am talking to Lamont in the grocery store, and I'm trying to sort of show that I'm interested, I might say, "Oh, you got a little lint on your shoulder right there." It's a way of, conveying a sense of touch, but also not creepy or too much. And then you can gauge whether the other person is receptive to that, or if they sort of like back off, like that's also information that's like, okay, that was a little bit much, whatever. But if they say, "Oh, well, thanks for that, I really appreciate that," or in conversation when you sort of touch somebody on the arm while you're making a point, or those kind of things, or just innocent and affirming touch, I think, is the next phase of the courtship. So just initiating that and seeing what kind of response that you get. So
the types of touches you're talking about are not like overly aggressive touching.
Right.
It's like that little touch of, hey, are you bumping to the person? You might touch their hand. It's that beginning phase of getting a physical touch with that person. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. That can be confusing sometimes. Have you all ever received like mixed messages when someone touched you? Like, was it an accident or was it just something that was too inappropriate? I want to hear some of your stories. Christian had posed a question earlier, comment about feeling like he is confident. This is going back to I think number 2. He feels like he's confident. He makes himself available, but it just doesn't work out for him. He thinks maybe, if I'm reading correctly, that maybe they're just not physically attracted to him.
That might be part of it. I would also want to know, to use a fishing analogy, sort of what pond are you fishing in? Like, are you trying to talk to people at the gym while they're working out? Or are you, just like, are you trying to get people's attention in a place that isn't really ideal for conversation? So that might be something to think about. Whereas, are you at a speed dating event where folks are, the pump is a little bit primed, like folks are there because they want to meet folks and there's an opportunity, to communicate. So that would be a question I would have about, where are you trying to talk to folks? Or if it's like a bar or a club and the music's kind of loud and it's hard to hear, is that really the best time to initiate an in-depth conversation? Probably not, because you're not going to be able to hear.
So what I'm hearing, what I'm hearing from you is the place matters. The situation matters about. So if you're in a place that you said like too loud, a bar, a club, sometimes guys are not going to approach you. And I think one of your comments you said only sometimes straight guys approach you. So you're fishing in the wrong pond. Move. But we're still talking about physical touch. Like, when is a good time? Like, when do you feel like it's good to touch someone? Like, how do you show someone that you're physically attracted to them?
I think the information that's kind of gathered from that initial sort of, gentle or affirming touch, if the person is receptive to that, then that gives a green light to sort of move on to the next phase, or any of these different phases, really starting with phase 1, attracting attention, sending that vibe out there, and seeing who bites. Again, to use I don't know why I'm using all these fishing analogies tonight, but sort of you cast your net out there. I might. I have some salmon in the fridge that's been marinated. Seeing who responds, and then, after folks respond, that's the green light to then take it to the next level of verbal communication. And if the person engages in verbal communication, that's a green light to then sort of initiate some kind of touch. And again, this all doesn't have to happen in the first 5 minutes you meet somebody. This all happens, spaced out perhaps over maybe a number of different interactions. So I think that's important to keep in mind as well.
With that physical touch, like on a first date, everyone wants a kiss goodnight, right? If you want the kiss goodnight, what types of physical touch should you do beforehand?
I think a hug would be important, sort of to establish that type of rapport. If you're sitting next to somebody on a date, maybe a first date, or maybe you're bowling, or maybe you're, maybe the pottery painting thing. We send a lot of folks there. And if you're sitting next to somebody and maybe you sort of just bump your leg up against theirs, just real subtly, real innocently, but, does the person recoil from that, or do they also kind of lean in a little bit, or maybe sort of, touching, that kind of thing. And so it's sort of, does it feel comfortable? Does it feel awkward? Does it feel, affirming?
So and I hear from you saying they will give you cues.
Yeah.
Like if you touch them and they don't move, then yes. Or they do footsies with you under the table.
Right.
I remember a guy did that, and I was not interested in him. And I yanked my foot all the way back, and he got the point.
Yeah,
right?
And that's information. And unfortunately, it is hurtful a little bit when folks don't return, those gestures of intimacy or attraction. It stings a little bit when folks don't return that. But that doesn't mean that everybody else in the world is going to have the same response. And that's something really important to keep in mind. Especially in a place like Atlanta, the odds are in your favor. There are hundreds of thousands of gay men right here in the metro Atlanta, and this is a 15-county area, sort of the metro Atlanta area. The odds are in your favor. So that's important to keep in mind.
And I like how you said it, because I feel like dating is courtship practice. And sometimes it works out well, and sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, you're like, hey, I've learned something. Maybe guys don't like X, Y, and Z, so maybe I can try this. Yeah. So when a guy is not responsive or maybe rejects you, that's okay. Like, I think some of my best lessons have been a no or something went wrong.
Yeah.
And it kind of helps me for a future relationship.
But in that same vein, I think some really valuable advice that I got one time was, let the other person tell you no. Don't tell yourself no. So if you're attracted to somebody, if you say no to yourself.
Tweet that. Can you tweet that?
Yes.
Say that again.
Let the other person tell you no. Don't tell yourself no. So the answer, if you tell yourself no, the answer is always going to be no. It's not going to move forward. If you say, oh, that person's not going to be attracted to me, or they'll never speak to me, or, whatever, then the answer is always going to be no. But if you take a teeny little risk, and really, what are you risking? A few words, some oxygen. Oxygen is plenty last time I checked. And so, taking that risk to sort of step outside perhaps your comfort zone and make that contact or make your body language available and say a few words, you might get a yes.
Yeah. I think someone posted said nobody wants to be rejected, no one wants to be told no, and everyone wants the hug at the good night. I think if you follow some of these steps, you get that kiss at the end of that night, right?
It is possible, yes.
So we did number 4. Let's move on to number 5.
So phase 5, and now keep in mind what I said earlier about this all doesn't necessarily happen in the first 5 minutes of meeting somebody, or even on the first date or two with somebody. So the 5th phase shifts more into intimacy and sex. And so, when you're on a first date with somebody and trying to sort of understand who they are and what they're about, and their belief system and their thoughts about things, politics, religion, whatever, sports, theater activities, whatever it is, after a while, the rapport is cultivated enough to where intimacy can follow, and that would be in the form of that goodnight kiss, perhaps, or in the form of maybe, come on over to my place, we'll watch a movie, we'll watch some Netflix, and we'll cuddle on the couch together. We'll sit next to each other and maybe hold hands. Mm-hmm. And sort of shifting from just, physical sort of affirming touch to more direct, intimate touch. And so that's the next phase. And then along with that comes, engaging in sexuality with other folks as well.
So your intimacy phase, I'm going to make sure we're clear. Because we're talking about gay men courting. And sometimes I think we go from 0 to 100, right? So you're talking about intimacy as being having more of a conversation, maybe cuddling, maybe sitting down on the couch, but also that could include sex.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So it varies. I think sometimes we jump to sex, which is very, well, and we'll have, maybe that's another topic about is sex intimate or is it not, right? Yeah, we'll come back and do that another time. But I think sometimes we jump into sex because we want some level of intimacy or we want some type of release. So
if you think about it, I mean, I think that we live in a culture that, especially as men, that gives us permission to touch each other in very few circumstances. So a lot of times you'll have folks that don't touch anybody except maybe in the handshake line at church, or when they go to the barber shop, or the chiropractor, or pet ownership in the United States is greater than any other country on earth. And I think part of it is because we are touch deprived, and our pets are an opportunity for us to engage in touch with another being. And so we're kind of starved for touch. And so I think a lot of times sex is a place where we are allowed to touch each other. And so a lot of times folks will jump into having sex with folks because we're so touch deprived. Mm-hmm. And so that's just something I think that's really interesting and unique about our culture.
Mm. So Don said he's going to the grocery store because he's usually meeting guys on social media all the time. So he's hit it to Publix, and he said he's going to smile at somebody. Which Publix are you going to, Don, so I can send a whole bunch of guys your way? So there was a question that Aaron posed earlier, and it was, how do you do this long distance? Mm-hmm. Like, how do you court someone if you all live 2 hours away? Like, how does that really work with these phases?
Well, I think that there's obviously it's better to be in person because you can engage in that physical touch, certainly the sexual and non-sexual intimacy. But I think there's a unique opportunity available in long-distance relationships to really get to know each other on a deeper level, because you have to engage in verbal communication with each other in order to make it work. And so you have to look for things to talk about and ask each other questions about your day and your belief system and the way that you see the world and your experiences and your family. There's all kinds of things to talk about, and when you're trying to preserve that connection long distance, you got to use your words. You got to engage in that conversation.
So communication is key.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah. So that means you have to pick the phone up, right?
Yeah.
So you're not
Skype, FaceTime,
FaceTime, Skype. So not a text message.
Right.
Not a text message. I hope somebody's watching.
Yeah.
No text messaging. You have to pick the phone up, call the person, or do a video chat if you're doing long distance. Mm-hmm. Also, I think you have to schedule times to see each other.
That's right.
You have to have in-person contact. Mm-hmm. You cannot go, well, I'm going to say, I won't say you can't, but it's very challenging to go months, sometimes weeks without seeing someone, to physically touch them.
Yeah, I mean, I think an important consideration to take in, a factor to take into consideration when doing long distance is, what are the economics around preserving this relationship? Two things. One, can I afford to do this? Am I able to see, this person I'm dating on a somewhat regular basis, at least once a month or so? And if they're living in LA and you live in Atlanta and you're making $20,000 a year as they are, is that a realistic expectation for that relationship? Probably not, because you're not going to be able to afford to be able to have access to each other. Another thing I think that's important to consider, and I just forgot what it was I was going to say, so say something and I'll remember.
Well, I'm laughing at Dawn and Christian. They're going back. So Dawn's going to the Publix on Cascade Road, and then I think Christian's going to Wegmans. So
I recommend the one at North and Piedmont.
North and Piedmont. Yeah, that's a good one.
It is a good one.
Yeah. There's a new gay bar across the street there.
I heard that they did Midtown Tavern. Is they going to call it Midtown Tavern?
Yeah.
Or is it going to be, okay.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll have a little shindig there soon. Wink, wink.
Yeah. The other thing, I remember what I was going to say about long distance, and that is there a light at the end of the tunnel as far as when you will eventually be in the same city? I think that having something to look forward to as far as, okay, if we can just make it till May of next year, that's only a year out, we can make this travel thing work, knowing that there's a date in the future where this will kind of come to an end. And I think that's another important consideration.
So if you don't have one set and you don't see that light, that might be a signal that it's probably...
Well, it would. I think it would at least beg the question. That's an opportunity for some dialogue about what are we doing? Like, what are we? Do we see a future together? If so, what does that future look like? And an opportunity to engage in conversation around that. If you're with a partner who is hesitant to have that conversation, that is some valuable information from you. That's a nonverbal cue that perhaps this really might not be going somewhere, painful as that is to acknowledge.
Yeah. But I think those are life lessons, and sometimes understanding the truth of your situation will help you to find someone else that's a better fit for you. Maybe you all just need to be casual friends.
Yeah.
And that's okay. No
or maybe
judgment.
Right now is not the best time for this relationship. Maybe a year or two down the road, maybe it is a good time to revisit the possibility.
So if you have questions, I see the dialogue going on. It's cracking me up. Please pose those there. Well, I'm going to have Josh go over the 5 phases again so that you have all 5 of them. But if you have questions, we definitely have a few more minutes. Usually I try to aim for about like 30, 40 minutes, but I always go over because you all make me laugh, okay? But if you have questions, please place them there. And Josh is going to kind of do a recap on our 5 phases of dating.
Yeah, so kind of just a recap. So phase 1 is about your own body language and how you are attracting attention to yourself. By looking up, smiling, facial expressions, your openness to body, your body language speaks a lot in those public spaces. And you want to make sure that you're sending out a message of welcome, of invitation, of friendliness, of that kind of thing. That's the vibe that we want to send out. So that's phase 1, is really taking an assessment of how am I coming across to the rest of the world. Phase 2 of courtship is being able to read the body language of other folks and interpret, who are the other folks around me that look like they might be open to talking with me, or as I'm sending out a vibe of welcome or invitation, who is responding to that? Who is catching my eye? Who might be smiling at me? Who also has open body language and really paying attention to those things that are going on around you. Phase 3 is about verbal communication and really start, kicking off that conversation with a compliment or perhaps some, sense of humor, a joke about something, or, if we're in some kind of common experience together, talking about what it is we're doing. Like with the pottery painting activity that we do, what is it you're painting? Or that's an interesting color that you picked there. Or, here, would you like some wine? I've got a little extra here. That kind of thing, just as a way of beginning conversation. And seeing who is responding in kind to your conversation by, asking you a question. And you want to make sure that conversation is both interesting and that you convey a sense of being interested as well as being interesting. I think that's a really important thing to get across. So that's verbal communication, phase 3. Phase 4 is the beginning of physical touch. And again, we're talking about subtle, affirming, non-sexual touch, in the form of, just tapping somebody on the shoulder, perhaps bumping somebody's knee if you're sitting next to them on a date, a little bit of footsie under the table is fine, picking off a piece of lint off somebody's shirt, that kind of thing, or touching somebody on the arm while you're talking to them to make a point, that kind of thing. So again, non-sexual, affirming type touch. And then phase 5 is about sexual and non-sexual intimacy. When you get to a point where you've been invited into somebody's space and they allow you to touch, you get the green light of each of these phases, you'll get a green light or a red light about moving forward. And if you get the green light, then you'll get to a place where you can cuddle together on the couch, where it's appropriate to hold hands while you're watching the movie. You get that goodnight kiss, and eventually, hopefully, engage in sexuality with each other.
Thank you so much for the recap, Josh. So we have some questions here that I want to make sure we get to here. So, Courtney says, is it important to create a friendship with your partner first? Should your partner be your best friend? Woo! So, I think, so if you're talking about, and we may disagree, but let's have the conversation about best friends. I have a best friend in the world. My partner, we've been together for 4 years. I still have a best friend who's my best friend. My partner is an amazing friend. He is my ride or die. I love him. I do anything for him. It's a different type of friendship. Yeah. It's definitely a different type of friendship. We talk about any and everything, sometimes inappropriate and funny. Yep. And we do a lot together. But I have a best friend.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, and I actually, I have a lot to say about this particular topic, and I won't go into all of the points that I would like to make. But it is, I think that the fairy tale romance tries to make it to where, you know, your partner, your spouse, your whatever is supposed to be all things to you, and I think that is too much pressure. And that's actually a fairly recent development in relationship, is that it hasn't always been that way over the course of thousands of years of human relationships. And so I think it's a bit too much pressure on a relationship that they have to be your best friend, your lover, your sex partner, your travel buddy. Like, all those things have to be wrapped up in one. Why not diversify the portfolio a little bit? They can be your best friend, but do they have to? No.
I agree with you. I think that is a daunting task.
Yeah.
To be everything to someone. Like, you're gonna fail. You're setting your partner up for failure, literally, right? So I think it's an unrealistic expectation. However, there are people that disagree with us and say they believe that your husband, your wife, your partner should be everything, right? How's that working out for them?
Well, and also you run the risk of codependency too. And so if your partner is everything to you, you might not even leave the house. I mean, that really can develop into a, we don't do anything without each other. And so there, that's we need a sense of community. We, as human beings, we are wired for connection with each other. I mean, it's just so important to overall health and well-being. And, you want to sort of make sure that you have as many friends as possible. That makes life better.
We had another question about, and I'll try to summarize it correctly because it did scroll up. But if someone is a full-time student, has a full-time job, just is a very busy person, and the question is, should they find someone else who has similar commitment? So they're equally busy. And it's hard for them to date. So should they find someone that has similar commitment? I feel like dating is a full-time job. I feel like guys want to feel special. They want to know that you are putting effort, that you're setting aside time for them. And if you cannot do that, most guys are going to feel some type of way about that. So if you have a full-time job, you are a full-time student, you're volunteering at your church, doing some other things, maybe dating is not a priority for you right now. Maybe you want to wait until you finish school so that you can commit some more time to dating someone. That does not mean you're not going to bump into anybody. It does not mean you're going to have casual dates and conversations and friends. I think it's just very challenging if you don't have hours in the day to pick the phone up and call someone.
I wonder if it's the right question to ask, because I do believe that people make time for what is important to them. And so, I think a better question to ask might be, is this person available? Or are they willing to make themselves available? As opposed to, should I look for somebody that is as busy as I am so they understand, or somebody who is not as busy as I am because they'll have time to interact? I don't know if that's the best question to ask.
Yeah, agreed. And Blake said dating is an expensive full-time job.
Doesn't have to be. Does not have to be. I think that is a false choice also because, if you think about it, when you're dating, there are opportunities to spend time. Dating is all about spending time and creating a common history together. And there are plenty of things to do in Atlanta that do not cost money.
Yep.
And it just requires a little bit of creativity and a little bit of effort to carve out those opportunities to share experiences together.
I totally agree. I'm losing my voice because I've been talking too much and it's the allergies, but I totally agree. I feel like going out to dinner is not the hallmark of a date. You taking someone out to a restaurant, spending money on them is not, the measure of a date. You all can go ride your bikes together. You all could go for a walk in the park. You could get on the subway and just ride around the city just to look at things. There are tons of things that cost $0 for you to do, which I think guys appreciate more because you're, like you said, you're spending time with them, you're creating moments and history with them, and you're not spending any money.
Yeah, and especially as we move into these warmer months, there's a street festival every single weekend in the city of Atlanta. There's Streets Alive, the Pride's coming up, the Dogwood Festival just happened, the Caribbean Festival, all kinds of festivals that, again, don't cost any money. And it's all this interesting free entertainment a lot of times, food, that kind of thing. So lots of good stuff to do.
Yeah, but I see Peter, or Pastor Sai, I will say, he said he is happily married and his two brothers are his best friends.
Very good.
So, again, your partner does not, or your husband does not need to be your end-all, be-all. So I think we're at time.
Yes. It went by quickly for me.
Good job, Josh. Yes. We didn't break anything. We didn't curse. I think we kept things appropriate. Had fun doing it. Answered your all's questions. Again, check out our website. It's betterwaytomeet.com. We do very old-fashioned matchmaking. If you are watching this video, we want to make sure that you like it. Share the video. What do you want them to do? Share the video. Okay?
And throw in a hashtag.
Yes. Let's make sure this goes viral. And again, if you have topics you want us to talk about, you can inbox either one of us appropriate things. I don't want any trash in my inbox. There's enough there. Just send us some comments or some suggestions for future conversations. And again, thanks for tuning in. We're going to try to do this every other Tuesday at 7 o'clock. So if you could set your calendar as a reminder, I would love that.
Yeah.
All right. Good night, folks.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks.